And which brings us right to the remedies in criminal justice, actually more than remedies, systemic change in criminal justice that you're fighting for. Why don't you tell us about that work?
I gave up my partnership to pursue my passion. And my passion was, I'd begun working on the indigent defense system. I'm really kind of a systems lawyer. I've always enjoyed the interplay between the law and public policy. And so I've done, school systems, healthcare systems, public housing, prison systems, juvenile detention facilities, whatever, always kind of institutional reform litigation where you could force policymakers to do something that they didn't want to do. Because most of my people don't vote and most of them don't contribute to political campaigns.
That's right. That's right.
If you're not there, then you're really not a part of the American.
Yeah.
George Kendall is has been called by the Solicitor General of the United States. George has been called the first among equals in our nation's death penalty community. George came to work with me at Hanlon tonight, and he saw the stuff I was doing, and he said, "Steve, I want you to focus on indigent defense. This is a serious problem in the country, and the whole criminal justice system is." I spent about 25 years doing that. I often like to say that George hijacked my career, and I moved into criminal justice reform, and particularly through what I call the lever of public defense reform. So here's how it works, Jan. It's common knowledge. Public defenders have too many cases, okay? Far too many cases. Okay?
Right.
So I did a case in the Missouri Supreme Court and won it 4-3. And the case said that if a public defender can prove that the office of the public defender, this would be the whole state of Missouri, okay, has too many cases, then the judge can't appoint. The public defender has a duty, not just the power to do that, but the duty to do it, and no judge can order him to take more cases than he or she can competently handle, or the state, there are 353 lawyers here in Missouri. It's a big public law firm. So you can't order those people to do that if you can show that they don't have the resources to provide competent representation. Why is that? Well, the number one thing is we have a rule as lawyers. It says we will never do such a thing, okay? And we've just, all of us, my whole profession, okay, has ignored that rule for 50 years, okay? Because public defenders were considered exempt. Oh, you go right ahead. We know very good and well that
you're overworked and understaffed and people aren't getting fair treatment.
Right. And we know very good and well that there's little or no investigation going on in any of these cases. But we need you so that we can do mass incarceration, okay? Because that damn Supreme Court back in the 60s, when it was a real Supreme Court, they said, if you want to put a person in a cage, you have to give them a lawyer, and they made it clear subsequently that lawyer has to have the ability to be reasonably competent. So, and if you don't give them that, then you can't put them in cages. Well, so they really needed us. They needed the whole profession to roll over and play dead for this group of primarily Black and brown people, okay? And we said, you got a deal, okay? We'll do it. We won't be lawyers. We won't be judges. We won't be prosecutors. These cases are just going to be rolled, okay? And that way we can, in Justice Stevens's famous words, become loyal foot soldiers in the executive's war on crime. And that, I hate to say this, Jan, I'm a lawyer, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my profession for a lot of things and not for a lot of other things. I've been practicing for 55 years. It hurts me to say this, but my profession, all of us, okay, all of us, I didn't pay any attention. I knew damn good and well what was going on in that system, but I had other things to do. Michelle Alexander's great book convinced me that We were wasting our time on all the other stuff we were doing. This is the problem that Black people really, really face, okay? We gave them the illusion of a lawyer.
Of justice, right.
The illusion of justice, and that's how they filled our jails and prisons, okay? So now I've got public defenders who can say, no, I'm not going to do it. And
Yes.
I've done, yes, they can say no. And we've had two very courageous ones do it, okay? And every time they do it, they will face retaliation. They'll face retaliation from the judiciary, from the governor, from the legislature, and everyone in power.
Well, tell us how you got that ability for them to say no.
I did a literature review of the Delphi method. The Delphi method is a method that was developed by the Rand Corporation in the late 50s, early 60s, for use by the Air Force and the Army and the services to develop a reliable consensus of professional opinion, okay, about matters which necessarily involve professional judgment and could not be precisely quantified. It's called qualitative analytics as opposed to quantitative analytics. And the Delphi method has been reviewed, peer-reviewed, and found to be a reliable method for doing precisely this kind of thing. So I just modified it to fit the public defender model. I found a really great accounting firm in Missouri. It's Reuben Brown, great accounting firm. I wanted them to do the data and analytics, and I would do what drives the study, the law and standards applicable to what should a public defender do, or any lawyer do on a murder case, a misdemeanor case, a lower level felony, a high level felony, etc. And so we did 2 electronic surveys of a large number of lawyers. And for each one of those categories, let's talk easy, start with misdemeanor. How much time should you spend on average now, using the law of large numbers? How much time should you spend on average for communicating with a client in a misdemeanor case? That'd be the first thing you do, okay? And then how frequently should you do that? Then we take it through all the other tasks, researching the law and filing motions and preparing for hearings and preparing for trial and investigating the case and trying the case. So 50% of the people responding to the survey were private practitioners. So I wanted those guys and gals in there because they got sufficient resources and they know what reasonably effective assistance to counsel is, okay? That's the test, okay? And then you got public defenders in there too, half of them. Well, they've been basically spending their whole life with an active water hose in their mouth, okay? And they've never seen reasonably effective assistance of counsel. That's one of the things that the Delphi method does. Get people in the room who may disagree and see if you can get them to a consensus, okay? So we do those 2 electronic surveys first to give them an idea. Well, here's where the publics are, here's where the privates are. Where do you want to go? Second electronic round, publics, privates. Now we give them the mean of that. And we say, let's all come together for the 3rd round. And we put them together in a room. And we're going to come out of there at the end of the day with a number for every one of those tasks, for every one of those cases, okay? And they fight like stuck pigs. I mean, and that's what you want them. That's what lawyers do, okay? And it's great, and it's great discussion. And you got 500 years of experience in the room, okay? Average experience maybe 27 years. That's a real reliable professional consensus to come out and say, Judge, here's what's going on in misdemeanor, just in Missouri. Here's what's going on in misdemeanors. We also did timekeeping. Public defenders hate to do timekeeping, but they got to do it because that's the only way we know what they are doing, okay? And that way we compare it with what they should be doing. So misdemeanors in Missouri, they were doing about 2.3 hours on average on the misdemeanor cases. Some of them they do 30. Some of them do, half an hour, okay? What did the Delphi panel say that they should do on those? 12.3? Well, imagine what that would do to our justice system. 12.3.
12.3.
And same way for, now break them down into low-level misdemeanors, high-level misdemeanors, low-level felonies, mid-level felonies, high-level felonies, life without parole, murder, and probation. Those are our basic categories. So you basically come out of there with 9 numbers. And in Louisiana, we were able to establish with the largest, the American Bar Association and Hostel, Waithe and Nitterville, the largest accounting firm in Louisiana, impeccable reputation. They have 20% of the resources that they need in order to provide reasonably effective assistance to counsel pursuant to prevailing professional norms. Okay.
You're saying public defenders have 23% of the resources.
You got it.
Right.
So what did they do? So we went into court. We said, Judge, I cannot continue to represent these people. Every time I touch one client's file, I'm taking time away from somebody else, and I can't do this anymore. So let's do this, Judge. Why don't you keep me on those murders and life without parole and maybe some high felonies? I can't take any more for a couple of months because of the backlog that I have right here. And I'll continue to do 1 or 2 or 3 more of them as I get rid of the other cases that I've got in this backlog here. And I'll work 2,100 hours a year just on my cases, okay? That's a staggering amount of work. That means they'll be at the office working 3,000 hours a year, okay? I'll work my butt off if you'll give me the resources to do it adequately. Not Ifley Bailey, just reasonably, okay? As determined by 500 years of experience that have been in this room. Huh? And by the way, the standard that they were applying as to what you should do in these cases is a standard that has been approved by prosecutors, judges, academics, and criminal defenders. So I got everybody agreeing when we asked the most important question, what should you do? I've got everybody agreeing on that, okay? Now, that means, well, Judge, what are you supposed to do with the rest of your cases? Well, they have to be dismissed unless you can put a competent lawyer there. And if the defendant's in custody, he has to be released, or she has to be released. I won that case.
Oh, wow.
And the state, we're now on our way up to the Louisiana Supreme Court. And the state says, the sky will fall. We can't prosecute 80% of our cases. So what's our answer to that? Okay. Our answer to that is this. You better look hard, okay, at what you're doing. Okay, and maybe do something like what San Francisco did, okay, or Washington, D.C., but virtually nobody else in the nation. Take a look at the Brennan Center report in 2016, I think it was. 40% of our prison and jail population could be released tomorrow morning without any public safety consequences whatsoever.
Wow. That does not really surprise me. Not with the way we've been putting folks in jail, especially Black folks, Black men.
The criminal justice system, I call it the criminal processing system because that's all they're doing.
Right.
Justice here, it's just processing, okay, is a dumb business model, okay? It said, we'll take everything you got. Doesn't matter how much money we got to do it competently. We'll never examine that question. We'll just take everything you got. Well, any business saying that would be out of business in a year, okay? This business is not financially bankrupt, but it is morally bankrupt and legally bankrupt. So, Louisiana, you think caging people and for nonviolent offenses and funding your system on how many traffic tickets you can issue for driving while Black and all, urinating in public, all this, serious mental health issues, serious poverty issues, serious homelessness issues, serious addiction issues. You think the best remedy for that, you incarcerate a greater percentage of your people than any other jurisdiction in the world, okay? That would include China, okay? Because you have this great belief in cages, how important cages are. I wonder if that has anything to do with your racial past. In any event, um, that's a very expensive way to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the Brennan Center report finds that if you would take that 40% out and get them what they actually need, which is not cages, which make them worse, not better, get them what they actually need, which is appropriate social services for addiction and alcohol and drugs and mental illness, etc., you would save $200 billion in the United States over the course of 10 years. Okay, 200 billion here, 200 billion there. Now, there's one other factor we tell Louisiana as we go up to that Supreme Court and as we talk to the legislature.
May I just ask you a question here, though? In addition to the social services, are there other options? I'm thinking of restorative justice, mediation,
yes.
all of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Victim restoration, meet the victim, the apology, some sort of, what we could do if we get rid of this idea that we're going to solve this problem with caging people we're not scared of these people. We're just upset with them. Okay. At best, we'd be concerned about them. Okay. But I'll take upset. Okay. I'm a reasonable man. Now we have to ask ourselves, and so San Francisco did this and Washington did this too, DC. Well, I wonder how we're doing on those murder cases. Huh. You know what the solve rate is for murder in New Orleans, Louisiana right now?
What rate is?
Solve rate.
Oh, okay.
Results in arrest?
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm. Between 30 and 35%. If you commit a murder in New Orleans and in most major American cities, okay, you've probably got a 2-to-1 chance of getting away with it. Why is that? Because they're putting all these resources on these 40% of the people who are not a public safety problem.
That is a most interesting outcome. So guilty murderers and high crimes get more punishment, or well, I hate to use the word punishment, resolved.
If you would use this money in your homicide unit,
right,
instead of chasing people who are got a missing license plate or what criminalizing all of this hopelessness, poverty, etc., you would be so much smarter. So now, can we nationalize this? Yes. Kamala Harris, she's introduced a bill, okay, into Congress. God bless her. And she's passionate about this. And we've gotten her a sponsor in the House. It's in the Senate. It's called the Equal Defense Act. And here's what the Equal Defense Act says. All right. We know that the states for 50 years have not adequately funded public defense. And in all fairness to the states, it's an unfunded federal judicial mandate. It was the Supreme Court in Gideon versus Wainwright, which in '63, which said, if you want to case these people, you have to provide them a reasonably competent lawyer. Okay, but there's no funding for it from the federal government. So that's something that the federal government can do, because we have a 50-year record that my profession will roll over and play dead and just facilitate this mass transfer of Black and brown communities as well as white communities into these facilities. So she provides for $1.25 billion in public defense right to the states, as long as they're willing to do what Missouri and Louisiana did, what we did in Missouri and Louisiana. Get your data together. Okay, you got to know how many lawyers you actually have, FTE, and you got to know what your caseload is. I mean, how many murder cases do you have, and how many, life without paroles, and how many high felony, mid felony, et cetera. Okay. Now, if you can do that, we'll give you direct money right now on the 2 more conditions. Get rid of that 40% that's down at the bottom. Okay, that doesn't belong in your criminal justice system. Decriminalize it. And secondly, do sentencing reform. These long sentences are absurd. Okay?
It's so powerful. And you're involved in the national effort now for this?
Yeah, I helped Senator Harris write that bill. Okay.
Good for you, Steve. My God, you have come a long way.
Well, thank you. I'm just, I call myself the luckiest lawyer I know. I mean, I just love doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I think, I think I can see the promised land. I mean, we just got to learn how to win a goddamn election. If we can do that, I think we can make some changes.